Welcome to the Juice Consumer Direct Podcast. I'm Nate Clegg, here with Carson Poppenger, and a very special guest, Justin Jump, who is one of our favorite people here at Squeeze, genuinely.
Yeah.
Not only does he have the coolest name here at Squeeze, but he's our Director of Training and Development, and he does one heck of a job. So, Justin, we're super glad you're here with us today.
Thank you.
And Carson, why are we talking about training and development?
Well, training development's like really key to our business because the clients that we work with, they're trusting us to work with their consumers and their prospects, and that we're going to represent ourselves, in the best way possible with agents that are well trained, that understand the concepts and ways to handle calls, and we're interacting. That's one of the questions we get a lot when we're starting a new relationship. Is a lot of times other organizations other than marketing, they'll say, well, are you interacting with our consumers? Yes, we are. Okay. So training and development is something that's really key to what we do. And Justin's done a phenomenal job. So when we talk about what are we going to talk about on this podcast, what's relevant to our clients, training development is right up there at the top. And so glad to have you here, Justin.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. I really do.
Well, I remember when you first came on, and I came down and I met you, and you showed some of the content that you were putting into training. You came to one of our meetings and showed us. My first and immediate response was I sent a message to James, who's your boss, and I said, James, we have to find a way to promote this guy because we cannot let him leave. We only have him for a short period of time if we don't, and you've been promoted at least twice since then.
Yeah.
So that's good. So we're
Record,
glad you're here.
Record
Yeah.
for me, so
Well,
it's good.
And one of the things that at least I always pitch new clients is what we talk about our white glove experience, and Carson's mentioned that as in connection with the training, because we know that when we hand people over to you, you're going to kind of create that white glove experience. And to kind of explain our demographic, the people that we hire, these are college students. And we do that by design. One, they have less experience, which is good because we can train them up. You can train them up the Squeeze way. You're the one getting that done. And they're usually super smart, and they learn quickly. It comes with its own challenges, though. And you've mentioned a couple things that I think you've done to address that. One of them is you try to think like the new hire. So when you say think like the new hire, what do you mean exactly by that?
Yeah, so I like to use the phrase, put your new hire goggles on. And I think you're looking through the lens of the new hire, right? They're walking in on day one. They're nervous. They don't know what to expect. And we as leaders kind of need to also look through that same lens and understand the situation that they're coming into and how can we help make them comfortable, first of all. And I remember my very first job, I was working for a office supply store. And my manager pulled me aside one day and walked me down one of the aisles, and he was pointing at at some of the product that was on the aisle, and he was like, "What do you notice here?" And I was like, I had no idea what he was talking about. And he says, just look for a second, take your time. What do you notice? And I finally started to visually recognize some of the product was kind of out of place, some of it was turned sideways, some of it was backwards, some of it was missing. And he goes, how do you think this experience is for this person that's coming into the store looking for a specific product and they notice this or they see this? And it just kind of opened my eyes up to be yeah, look, we're constantly selling, whether that's a new hire coming into our building who's, starting a brand new adventure with us or whatever the case may be, or you actually are selling something. We want to make sure that experience is top of the line. And he called it facing, so it was front facing. And I watched him literally turn every single box to make sure it was all organized, to make sure that everything was facing properly. And it just kind of instilled in me, visually, when these new hires walk into that training room, I want everything in tip-top shape. I don't want, cords dangling all over the place. I don't want the visuals to be oh man, who did I just start working for? And I think that's very important.
Yeah, so just a week ago, I have sort of a story that illustrates how well you guys do with this, but we didn't give you any notice, or it wasn't even really on the plan, but we had a client visiting the office and we were walking around, and we said, hey, let's go check out the training area and the training room and facility and show you there. We'll introduce you to some of the training team. And Levi was in there, and we sort of showed him around our, this is where we train all our new hires, welcome them in. In there, we have murals on the wall that kind of talk about our values, talk about getting stuff done, and just sort of our mode of operation. Sort of when they come in, they get to immersed in our culture I think that's been like something that you guys have done a great job with. But then as we were chatting with Levi, we said, hey, Levi, like you guys have developed a lot of great training programs, that are interactive and kind of fun. Do you mind showing us one of those right now, just without any preparation? And Levi says, yeah, I've got one for you. Do you like superheroes? And everyone's like, yeah, I like superheroes. And then he plays like a training video that's completely like geared around superheroes. And it's got valuable content and training principles and information in there, but it's fun and it's totally animated. It's an animated
Right.
video that you guys narrate. You write the scripts. Come up with all the funny lines, and you film it and produce it. And anyway, you guys have done a great job with that. So
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, we invested in. I think you have to invest, right, in your learning, and we did that through that software, and we create a lot of video content. I mean, weekly. I think something new is coming out for continuing education reasons, or making sure that our leaders are even getting continuing education or development, and that's very important to us. Like, we want to make sure we're always on top of the learning curve, if you will.
Well,
So
how cool is it that one of our, in fact, I think it might be our biggest client, was in office. They didn't even give you guys a heads up, but their level of trust was high enough that Carson knew, and so did Jacob. You guys could just walk down the stairs, walk right into the training room, and know that it would be okay. Because that's true. Like, I was thinking about that when you were saying that. Like, they already knew they could trust that our training team would have something ready to go and it would go well. Because that could go poorly, right?
Right.
But you guys were ready to go.
yeah.
Well, you alluded to some of the ways, and so did Carson, that you've made that training material appeal to that demographic of ours. Excuse me. What are some other things that you've done to kind of tailor make the training process for that kind of college age student?
When I first came in, I had no idea what our training process was like, and because I actually got hired on as a leader, and so I hadn't gone through it myself. And when I was sitting through it, it only lasted 3 days long, and I was thinking, oh man, 3 days, and it's only 4 hours each day. Like, how is this even effective? And I had came from a place where training lasted almost 4 weeks, and then you kind of had like this graduation period where you were out on the call floor for a week and you continued to get trained up. So I didn't know how it was going to go, but I sat through it and it worked. And it's because we already kind of tailored it towards the needs of our partners, and we're taking the approach of we're cutting out the fat and we're only putting in the things that matter. And realistically, what it came down to was making sure that we're doing enough role playing, shadowing, the things that are going to help an agent actually learn the job, and take out everything else and have some fun while we're doing it. And I think that was the biggest thing that I noticed coming in was, there's still more fat to cut out of this content, even though it's only 3 days and it's only 4 hours long, but there's still things that we could do to make it more effective and get more out of performance in that 3-day period. So
Yeah, it probably has to do with some more of that, putting on that new hire goggle of, sure, there's lots more they could know about our company and our process and our clients and things, but do they need to, right?
Right.
Like, they need to know this thing. And the function that we have for our clients is typically we're reaching out to their consumers and we're engaging the initial conversation. And then we typically transfer that person over to our client, or we're setting an appointment for them. So that means we only have to be experts of just that part of the call. And the beauty of it is we're really, really good because we specialized at that portion of the consumer interaction. And that's kind of what you're alluding to. Like, we've got this dialed in so that we know our salespeople are going to know how to do their job and just their job and do it really, really well.
Yeah.
So that's smart.
yeah, you always hear about, start with why. And when you can, when you're training a concept or you're talking about something, I think one of my faults personally is like, and I always try to like stop myself, is like over communicating or like talking about things that, providing too much context. But I think when you're training these different concepts and things, it's good to talk about why, because people, they'll understand like, okay, this is how I do this, but why do I do it? Why? And people always ask that question. If they don't know why, they're not going to find it important. They're not going to pay attention. They're not going to use that And you guys do a great job with that as well. It's kind of like one of your.
Yeah, we send them a survey at the end of training, and we gather a lot of great data from that survey that allows us to kind of, I guess, alter whatever it is that we're doing that didn't work or wasn't effective. And we've gotten a lot of feedback through there, and we like to act on that, right? And I think it's important to act. If you're not changing, the bad habits or the things that are going on that aren't effective, then you're not gonna progress or make it better. So,
Well, and not to put you on the spot, I'm curious now, when you've sent out those surveys and gotten feedback back from them and you've adjusted, what's an example of one of those times where you adjusted based off of the feedback that you've received?
So when I first came in, we had a lot of videos that you would have to watch in order to learn a concept, and I worked with the trainer a lot to understand hey, why are we showing a video here? Couldn't we teach this concept and maybe make it more effective? And I don't know. For me, I like to hear it coming from the trainer versus just a video. And there was a lot of videos that were inside of our training portion, and we kept getting feedback like, "This is boring. I don't want to watch this. This is, I felt like a waste of time." And so we took that. We started taking some of that out, and I started training up the trainer on how to actually speak to that content live. And I feel like the engagement level increased incredibly. We actually, those survey scores, so when I came in, we were sitting around from a scale of 1 to 5 on average was around a 4.1, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, anything above 3.5, I'm happy with. But within 6 months of me being there and us critiquing the training process and what we were doing, we got that up to a 4.5 really fast, which is incredible. I mean, that's a big jump going from 4.1 to 4.5. So
Training glow up.
yeah, training glow up, right?
I like that a lot. Well, and you're speaking to it and you're saying, okay, well, here the agents feel better about it. And that's usually not enough, right? You have to have data to back that. But what's good is you do have data to back that. And one of the stats that we got that I loved was 87% of our new agents in their first pay period hit bonus.
Yeah.
They qualify for a bonus. And kind of how our bonus works is there's a number of things that they need to hit for performance level, but there's also a quality component where if you don't reach quality, you lose your bonus. So these people are hitting bonus and their quality levels sufficiently high that they're like, okay, you get your bonus. So what do you attribute that to? I mean, this all kind of speaks to it, but what else do you attribute that ability to get these new agents performing immediately?
Well, and that number is kind of unheard of, right? I think I was even surprised by that whenever I started to recognize that we were getting to that number. But ultimately, the proof is in the pudding. If you teach the concepts and the skills that they need in order to succeed, they're going to succeed. And if you take out the stuff that doesn't really help, you're going to take out some of that self-doubt. And I think the biggest thing for us was the transition coming from training to the call floor and helping them recognize what that's going to feel like and look like. Because a lot of times new hires will get caught up, trying to think how training was versus how the floor is going to be, and maybe going through that whole situation over again where it's something new, they're unfamiliar with it, how's this going to actually be? And we actually simulate what the call floor will be like on their last day of training. They'll get to know their supervisor. They'll actually log in where their computer's at. We make sure they're comfortable, right? And I think that really helps the transition. So that way, coming Monday, whenever they come in and start their shift, they know exactly who they're reporting to, who to reach out to if they have questions, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to set them up for success while also teaching the concepts that are going to help them get there.
And I think the thing that is so great about the way you've done this, Justin, the success that we're generating when they hit the floor on day one, it's so important to our clients that we have an agent that can handle the calls correctly and generate maximum conversion and not miss opportunities. When you have an agent, I always say agent A, they converted, 10 sales opportunities today. Agent B converted 2. The average is 7. Well, agent B, you missed 5 potential sales opportunities that you should have had you followed the process that was working for everybody else and the rest of the team. And so standardizing that, communicating that, I think goes a long way to making sure that our clients experience that success when we're interacting with their consumers.
Yeah, I think part of what we talked about earlier is we talked about this kind of white glove experience that we create for the consumer and really for our clients. And when you guys do your training and you have client-specific training, and they're prepared for that specific client day one. So if it's somebody who's coming in and they're a bank and we're going to reach out to bank consumers, well, they are specific training for that bank, and there's specific training for that type of outreach that you guys have created. And I think that's part of that 87% are hitting bonus, because there's that client-specific training all the way through to get them to the point where they're going to be successful.
Yep. And we've created specific trainings for our partners. We actually have cross-training videos and content that we show on the 4th day of training, just so that way they can understand, like, it's not all general here, right? Like, we'll teach up the skills, the basic skills of attempting to handle objections, or your intros, or the body of what it is that you're going to be saying. But ultimately, yeah, it comes down to making sure they're trained up on the actual campaign for the partner that they're going to. And I feel like we've done a really good job of working with the partner, getting the content that we need and that they want us to have, and actually training specifically to that.
One of the things I've noticed when you've been speaking, it speaks to our general culture here at Squeeze. Our culture is very specific, and part of that is what you've brought and what you've also kind of seen as you come in, that, you know, the attention to detail, the constant drive to improve, and become better and to perform. And even just like, even that detail of you're going to log into your computer a day before you ever have to actually work on that computer, it erases a lot of the anxiety or the mystery around it, so they're super prepared. That level of detail is so incredibly important. So like you and I joined Squeeze about the same time,
Yeah.
maybe a couple weeks apart.
About a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I've noticed certain things, certain cultures or trends here at Squeeze that I've really appreciated. I'm curious to hear what part of the culture that you've seen that really sticks out to you, of like, hey, this is what sets Squeeze above and beyond what most of our competitors might be like.
Yeah. One for me is, I think we are performance driven, and it's clear that we're performance driven, and we want to make sure on a daily basis we're reaching our goals that our partners have set for us and that we have with them. And I think we do that in a tactful way, though, right? We don't term people due to performance. We actually correct behaviors, right? We coach them up, and we ensure that they're getting the opportunity to change whatever poor behavior might be going on to have, you know, poor performance or lower performance. And our coaches do a great job of being mentors and actually helping get them to where they need to be and satisfied and happy as employees with us. And that's big to me. Obviously it's all about development, right? And we do that in a tactful way.
So what are some of the things that you've done historically, Carson, to kind of develop that culture? We lucked into it, right? We came later, and you kind of alluded to this, like you have to constantly be selling to your agents to make sure that they feel engaged and want to be a part of Squeeze. But what have you guys done to kind of create this really awesome environment for them?
Well, I think, you know, it's assembling the right team, you know, and back in the day when we were much smaller and where I wore a lot of hats, you know, I would sometimes see like a training class coming in and starting, and I'd think to myself, of all the things that I've got to do today as the owner of the company and everything, we got to make sure that this training class gets off to a good start. And I don't have a Justin jump to build out this great content and training material and everything. So I'm going to get in there and do the best I can and work with the team and make sure that they feel that their job is important to us. And I think that's a big thing, is just communicating that, making sure everybody understands that their role is super important, no matter the level, even if they're just a new hire that just walked in the door, and give them that time and attention. And, you know, the other thing is just, you know, you kind of hit on the positive culture and everything. The 87% of new hires that are hitting bonuses, all that's by design too. You know, our bonus structures, everything like that, you know, nothing's more demotivating than you're given an incentive plan that you can't attain. It's just not attainable. And so making sure those incentive plans are attainable, and that the incentive plans that are attainable align with our profitability, right? We don't want to be giving out incentives and things on bad behavior, or behavior, not bad behavior, but like maybe like behavior that's not quite good enough for it to help lift the bar for us. Mm-hmm. So we really tie those incentives to not only like making sure the agent feels good that they're successful and they're seeing it in their paycheck, but that it's meaningful for the business, and that, you know, they can continue to get after it and have those incentives that are not only like on each call, but like each day, each week, each month. And we've set things up that way as well. So
And I think there's a couple of other things too on top of that, like we pay every week. I think that helps them keep present in mind of like, okay, I can do something today and it will matter because by the time I get paid, it's kind of almost in real time, right? That they're getting paid instead of like twice a month when these kind of younger kids especially, they're not going to think long term like that. That it's just not created for it. And one of the other things that you guys have done well here at Squeeze is there's like a coolness factor to our company. We literally have hundreds of people apply every week that we have to turn away because the demand is there, but we got to make sure that we filter it down to like the right candidates. And you're also in charge of recruiting, so you definitely see that. But like you look at Carson's shirt he's wearing today, that was designed. It's a really cool Squeeze shirt, and we feed him every Friday, and we have the right type of client. I think that really helps. They recognize the brand name of the client a lot of times that they're working for. And it creates this kind of pride factor. And I think the current generation of college-age kids really care about that. They care about who they're working for, how cool they are, or how legitimate they are. And so that when they get on the phones, they know, okay, this is going to be a good experience for the consumer. This is going to be something cool or something I can talk about what I'm doing today. And a lot of those applicants are referrals from our existing agents. And I think that really, really matters to this current generation. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I think 80% are referrals, and they tend to stick around a lot longer, right? Because they have a friend at work, and whenever you have a friend at work, generally, like, you have more fun, right? And you're more driven, right? You want to beat your friend, and so I think we do a great job of that.
Yeah, and I think what it'll do in the end is it protects our client's brand, right? We've created a situation where their brand can be enhanced and uplifted, and they have these really amazing agents who are representing them and representing them well. They're super well trained. And then the other thing that I really enjoy about what you've been doing is you've continued to create training that's not just for that new hire. It's continued education, continued training for really anybody at any level of the organization. So what are some of the things that you've been doing and some of the successes you've been able to see from kind of that continued education for the company?
Yeah, well, I think we understand that your agent can only be as good as your leader is, right? And so we put a lot of emphasis on leadership training and making sure that our leaders are constantly growing themselves, personal growth. And we just recently implemented we call our frontline leaders team leads, and we've implemented a team lead training to where I've created, with the help of my training team, 10 courses that are very, I guess, specific to their job details on a daily basis, and are helping, whether it's information they already know and we're just kind of reiterating it, or if it's brand new info for a brand new team lead who's coming on with a brand new group of agents. We're training them up so that way they can be the most effective they possibly can from day one, right? I remember having jobs in the past where you would start this job as a new leader and you had no idea what you were doing, right? It was kind of like what do I do here? And you had nobody sitting there beside you because nobody has the time to do that, right? So I think it's very important to have some system or program in place. And I've kind of taken the helm on that to train them up and help them to get to where they want to be at a quicker pace. So that way it's not, a lag for our partners or the campaigns that we're sitting there trying to drive performance on, right?
Yeah,
like we're getting it instantly.
One of the things that I love that you've done recently, roll out that team lead playbook. You've got a little playbook. It's a small book. It's about this big. They can keep it on their desk, full color, a nice heavy gauge paper and everything like that. And they have it accessible on how to handle different situations, how to handle a conversation, a coaching, how to give feedback, how to handle, onboardings, terminations, things like that. And it's on their desk, and their team is going to see that they have this and that we've created this, that it's important to the company and everything, and that we're giving them tools that they can use to do their job. I think is really, hats off to you for rolling that out. I think that's going to make a tremendous impact.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I like the aesthetic of it too, that little book. I walked into James, our chief operating officer's office, and he was looking at it, and I looked at it, and I'm like, what is that thing? That looks awesome. And one thing that you've got really, down is kind of the aesthetic of the training and just the visual. And we actually bring you along to a lot of the podcasts just so you can watch for a couple things, but definitely one of those things is the aesthetic. Make sure it looks right. And I think that feeds into this. Like it looks right. This generation absolutely wants it to look cool and feel cool, and that's what our training material is. And we've actually even stolen you and Levi for some general marketing purposes. If you go to our GoSqueeze.com website, on the main page, there's a video there that just kind of explains what we do. And these guys made that video. I mean, we kind of told them what we wanted it to look like, but you guys really ran with it from there, and it's awesome. And so you've been able to kind of create that content that's meaningful and speaks to our brand and kind of upgrades it a little bit at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to shift gears and go back to that continuing education, because I had a thought on that too, and something that I think is important to our clients and to really our team in general has always been sort of like something I've been keenly aware of. And that is that I noticed early on with the business, long before Justin was with us, but when we would put someone through a training program, whether it's a sales training or an agent new hire training, and all they knew was what we gave them. All they knew was the training material we gave them, the process, how to handle rebuttals, how to handle how to give rebuttals, how to handle objections, how to, offer the product or service or close someone on a, how do you roll the price to a consumer over the phone when you're selling a product? And we would teach them these things, and that's all they knew. They would go out and they would always immediately have success, and they would see, hey, this is working. But then one thing that happens over time is they would start to hear oh, so-and-so doesn't follow that process. They follow this process, and it worked for them. I heard they closed a sale or whatever it was. And then they start to try that on their calls, and then they go away from what they've been taught, and then they go to these maybe outlier scenarios and things like that, and they get away from it, and then their success rate starts to drop. So continuing education is a huge piece of just your sales management, whether you're running a loan officer shop with loan officers from mortgage origination or financial service products and services, insurance sales. You really want to come back and make sure that your team is just following that training process, the best practices. So, and the only way you're going to do that is if you put them through that, continuing education training, and you've got to develop that. And so that's a key part of what you guys have done as well. So
yeah, we have a massive list of standard operating procedures, right? If agent doesn't know what to do in a certain circumstance, if that's on a phone call or if, whatever it may be, they can go to that continuing education classroom and figure it out because it's in there.
It's all online and everything. Yeah,
it's all there for their access. So,
well, guys, I think out of all the podcasts that we've done so far, I think kind of this podcast might have the most kind of just very specific tips or things that a sales, like a VP of sales or director of sales, if they logged in and just watched this, they have all kinds of things that they can take back with them. So I think that's really great. It's probably time for some final thoughts. My final thoughts, the things that I would probably take away from this is it's worth it to invest in certain parts of your organizations. It always is. And training development is one of those things. You are only as good as your people are, and it's worth taking that extra money or time to just make it right and be really attentive to the details and find the right people like a Justin Jump out there who can help manage that part of your organization and do it really, really well. What do you think, Carson?
Yeah, I think training development, it's obviously key in every organization, especially those sales organizations, making sure that, there's always that rule that people say that, oh, you get 80% of your results from 20% of your team. And I don't think that's acceptable. I think that means that you just don't have a good enough trained team because they're not, maybe you're not selecting the right people, but you're also not training them properly. So training development is definitely key. It's been key to our success. And thanks to Justin for all he's brought to the team to help us just really level up and get even more great content training and hit on the things that are really important to the whole team. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed kind of hearing a little bit about how we approach training here at Squeeze.
Yeah, for me, I would say don't stop creating content and don't stop learning, right? Once you stop learning, you're never going to get any better. And we all need to get better, and whether we like to believe it or not. So there's always something out there to improve upon, and you need to just keep creating content and helping your people expand their role.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again, Justin,
Yeah.
for joining us. You've been watching the Juice Consumer Direct podcast. I'm Nate Clegg with Carson Poppenger and Justin Jump.
Make sure you interact with us online, like and subscribe, share our stuff. We love to hear your comments or questions.
Thanks, everybody.